Welcome to Innovation Pulse, your quick, no-nonsense update covering the latest in startups and entrepreneurship news. Why Combinator is championing full-stack AI startups, enhancing sectors like accounting and law, while challenging Google's market dominance due to its impact on AI innovation and investment. After this, we'll dive deep into the intriguing invisible feature phenomenon and how it affects tech feature adoption. Stay tuned. Full-stack startups YC is spotlighting a new category called full-stack AI companies, signaling an intriguing shift in venture capital and alternative assets. These startups are not about creating entirely new products, but enhancing existing services with AI, leading to a structural shift in the industry. The focus is on areas like accounting and law firms, where AI can significantly increase profit margins. Unlike traditional software businesses, starting such services requires minimal initial investment, as they primarily revolve around selling contracts. The revenue model is service-based, offering repeatable and scalable income, albeit growing slower than software. The exciting part is whether AI-enhanced firms can be packaged with the lucrative exit multiples typical of software businesses. There is also a question of whether traditional venture-backed founders are best suited for this model, or if it aligns more with private equity dynamics. As the lines between venture capital and private equity blur, this shift might redefine the concept of a software business, making it a compelling area for investors and founders alike. Combinator, a renowned startup investor and accelerator, has filed an amicus brief in the United States monopoly case against Google, accusing the tech giant of stifling innovation in the startup ecosystem. YC argues that Google's dominant market position has discouraged venture capital firms from investing in web search and AI startups, creating a kill zone around Google. YC seeks to fund startups developing AI tools that could revolutionize internet interactions, but fears Google's monopoly may hinder these efforts. Rather than calling for a breakup of Google, YC suggests the company should curb anti-competitive practices, like paying Apple billions to be the default search engine on iPhones. YC also proposes opening Google's search index for training competitive AI models. If Google fails to make such changes within 5 years, YC advocates for potential government-enforced divestitures. Interestingly, YC's relationship with Google is complex, marked by past collaborations and investments. However, YC's ties to OpenAI, a direct Google competitor, add another layer to the dynamics, as OpenAI could benefit from proposed changes. Despite its critique, YC maintains a nuanced stance, emphasizing the need for innovation alongside existing tech giants. And now, pivot our discussion towards the main entrepreneurship topic.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Innovation Pulse. I'm Donna, and as always, I'm joined by my insightful co-host, who never fails to bring the most interesting tech psychology topics to the table.
That's right. I'm Yakov Lasker, and today we're diving into something I think every product designer and developer needs to hear. Why your amazing new features might be completely invisible to your users.
Oh, this is such a fascinating topic. I feel like we've all experienced this from both sides. As users who discover a feature that's been there forever, and as creators wondering why people aren't using our brilliant innovations.
Exactly. There's actually a great story that illustrates this perfectly. A developer spent weeks creating what they thought was a game-changing feature. A sleek button that would help associate bankers transfer calls to licensed colleagues in specific states. The implementation was flawless, UI was polished, functionality worked perfectly.
Let me guess, nobody used it?
Not a soul. While the developer was admiring their handiwork, the bankers kept using their old-school printed lists of direct extensions. That beautiful button had essentially become invisible, just blending into the UI wasteland.
That's brutal but so common. And it wasn't just that the users were resistant to change, right?
Right. It's actually about how our brains work in relation to technology. Users aren't ignoring features out of stubbornness. They're following cognitive patterns that we often design against, rather than with.
I've seen this called the invisible feature phenomenon. Can you break that down for our listeners?
Sure thing. Our brains are constantly filtering information to prevent overload. When we use apps or software, we develop neural pathways, essentially habits for navigating interfaces. Anything that disrupts these established patterns tends to get filtered out. Our brains are actually working against noticing new things.
Do we have any data on how this plays out in real products?
Absolutely. When Slack introduced Stories, they saw a 30% drop in weekly active users within just 3 months. The culprit was added cognitive burden, 7 new interaction points that increased decision time by over 2 seconds.
2 seconds doesn't sound like much, but in UI terms, that's practically an eternity.
Exactly. And heat map studies showed that 68% of users didn't even see the Stories toolbar. They stuck to their familiar pathways instead.
So if forcing features on users doesn't work, what does? I mean, product teams still need to innovate and add new functionality, right?
That's where the joy of discovery comes in. Here's the counterintuitive truth. Users tend to embrace features they discover on their own.
That makes sense. It's like when I found that keyboard shortcut for duplicating layers in Photoshop after years of right-clicking. I immediately told everyone I knew about it, even though it was probably in the tutorial I skipped.
You're describing it perfectly. When Airtable forced a new automation pop up on users, adoption crawled to just 9%, but when they repositioned it as a subtle plus menu for natural discovery, adoption jumped to 41%.
Wow, that's a dramatic difference. So why does discovery work so much better than instruction?
It's all about brain chemistry. Self-discovered features trigger dopamine releases that create a sense of ownership. You felt like you found buried treasure with that Photoshop shortcut, right? Even though it was documented somewhere, finding it yourself made it special.
That explains why elaborate onboarding often backfires. It transforms discovery into instruction, joy into obligation.
Exactly. So instead of building more invisible features, designers need a framework that works with human psychology, not against it.
Lay it on me. What does that framework look like?
It's a 3-layer approach. Layer 1 is all about awareness, solving what we might call the peripheral vision problem.
That's where most features fail, right? Users never even notice them.
Right. But the key insight is that forcing awareness through pop-ups is like handing someone a map when they haven't decided to embark on a journey. It feels intrusive. Instead, we need subtle tactics like creating Easter egg animations, slight movements that trigger pattern, recognition without demanding focus.
Or using peer comparison nudges, like 85% of teams like yours use this feature to create FOMO without being pushy.
You've got it. The target metric here should be an 80% or higher exposure rate. Then we move to Layer 2, exploration, or what I call the playground effect.
So once users know something exists, they need a safe space to experiment with it.
Exactly. The target metric here is getting the first action within 72 hours. Tactics include creating sandbox environments. Figma's playground file for new users is brilliant at this.
And making the value concrete, right? Like teams using this feature save 3 hours weekly, hits harder than generic messaging.
That's right. And always design clear undo paths. Nothing kills exploration faster than fear of breaking something important.
Makes sense. What's the third layer?
Layer 3 is habit formation, the neural highway. This is where most feature adoption strategies fail. Awareness and initial use are meaningless if the feature doesn't become part of the workflow.
So how do we measure success here?
Look for a depth of use score. Ideally, users hitting at least 4 out of 7 feature touchpoints. And the tactics include creating skill progression that unlocks capabilities. That dopamine hit from leveling up builds powerful reinforcement loops.
Similar to how games keep us engaged. What about context-aware tips, like, I see you're doing X manually again. Try Y next time to save 2 minutes.
That's a perfect example. And don't forget to celebrate impact milestones. You've saved 8 hours this month using this feature makes the value tangible.
I love that this doesn't require completely overhauling products. Even minor adjustments to how features are presented can significantly improve adoption rates when they align with how our brains process information.
That's the key insight. The most underutilized features in products aren't failing because they lack value. They're failing because they lack effective implementation. They're invisible because they don't align with how users' brains naturally work.
So the question for product teams isn't how do we build more features, but how do we use human psychology to make valuable features discoverable?
Exactly. Your users aren't ignoring you on purpose. Their brains are busy, and you're making them work too hard.
This has been such an enlightening conversation, Yakov. Any final thoughts for our product designer and developer listeners?
I'd encourage them to look at their analytics and identify which features have low adoption rates. Then, instead of blaming users or doubling down on aggressive onboarding, apply this framework. Make awareness subtle, exploration safe, and habit formation rewarding.
Great advice. And for our listeners who use products, which, let's face it, is all of us, maybe take a moment to explore that menu you always ignore. You might discover something amazing that's been there all along.
And developers, remember, your users' brains are designed to ignore you. Design with that knowledge, not against it. We've explored how full-stack AI companies are enhancing sectors like accounting and law, while also considering the implications of Google's dominance on innovation. Additionally, understanding the invisible feature phenomenon can help tech users naturally adopt new features through discovery-driven engagement. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.